Listen very closely. What you are about to hear is the exact sequence of events that the Pentagon is desperately trying to scrub from the internet. The mainstream media is feeding you a sanitized, feel-good story about a successful crew rescue in the turbulent waters of the Red Sea. They are deliberately omitting the terrifying reality of what just happened to the United States Navy. The USNS Robert E. Peary, a massive Lewis and Clark class dry cargo ship, is gone. It didn't just run aground. It didn't suffer a minor mechanical failure or a localized fire. It was violently split in half and sent to the bottom of the ocean in exactly 14 minutes. This was not a random act of violence. It was a surgically precise, dual-layered maritime execution designed to sever the logistical lifeline of the American fleet in the Middle East. To understand the sheer horror of this event, you have to look at the anatomy of the strike. The attack did not begin with a massive, overwhelming barrage that the ship's escorts could easily identify and neutralize. Instead, it was a masterclass in modern asymmetric warfare. At precisely 0200 hours, a swarm of low-flying C-802 cruise missiles skimmed just inches above the dark surface of the Red Sea. These sea-skimming missiles are notoriously difficult for traditional radar to track until they are terrifyingly close. The escorting Arleigh Burke-class destroyers managed to intercept several of them, but the swarm was designed to deliberately saturate the defense grid. Two of the C-802s slipped through the electronic net and struck the starboard side of the Peary, tearing massive, jagged holes just above the waterline. But that was merely the opening act. The cruise missiles were not the kill shot, they were the distraction. As the ship's damage control teams rushed to seal the breaches and contain the localized fires, the true nightmare descended from the stratosphere. A Khalij-Fars anti-ship ballistic missile traveling at hypersonic terminal velocity broke through the cloud cover. Because the fleet's Aegis combat systems were entirely focused on the low-altitude cruise missile threat, the ballistic trajectory was registered fractions of a second too late. The Khalij-Fars did not hit the side of the ship. It struck directly onto the main deck, penetrating deep into the primary cargo holds before detonating with earth-shattering force. What happened next defies imagination. The explosion did not just destroy the ship, it triggered a catastrophic, sympathetic detonation of the cargo inside. A chain reaction of unimaginable power ripped through the internal structure of the 680-foot vessel. The shockwave was so immense that nearby escort ships reported severe structural vibrations and blown-out monitoring equipment. In less than 14 minutes, the pride of the Navy's Military Sea Lift Command was reduced to burning debris, dragging its highly classified, multi-billion-dollar cargo down into the lightless depths of the Red Sea. But to truly understand why Washington is in a state of absolute unprecedented panic tonight, you need to know exactly what was inside that cargo hold. Welcome to the terrifying mathematics of modern warfare. The USNS Robert E. Peary was not carrying food, medical supplies, or standard ammunition. It was acting as a floating, high-capacity magazine for the entire carrier strike group operating in the region. Inside those deep reinforced cargo holds were 30,000 highly advanced interceptor missiles. We are talking about the lifeblood of the Aegis combat system, SM-2s, SM-3s, and Sea Sparrow missiles. These are the multi-million-dollar interceptors that American destroyers absolutely rely on to shoot down incoming ballistic and cruise missile threats. They are the only thing standing between a billion-dollar warship and a watery grave. When the Khalij-Fars ballistic missile penetrated the deck, it ignited all 30,000 of those interceptors in a single apocalyptic fireball. Let's put a price tag on this disaster. The estimated value of that specific cargo load was a staggering $58 billion. $58 billion of American taxpayer money evaporated in 14 minutes. But the financial loss is actually the least of the Pentagon's concerns right now. The true catastrophe is the replacement timeline. You cannot simply order 30,000 advanced SM-class interceptors on Amazon Prime. That payload represented an entire decade of dedicated specialized defense manufacturing. 10 years of production completely wiped out in a fraction of an hour. The American defense industrial base is already stretched to its absolute breaking point, struggling to supply conflicts across multiple continents. It will take years, possibly a full generation, to replace the munitions that are now resting at the bottom of the Red Sea. This brings us to the most chilling aspect of this entire geopolitical nightmare, the cost asymmetry. According to defense analysts, the Iranian strike package, the C-802 cruise missiles, and the single Khalij-Fars ballistic missile cost an estimated $5.2 million to produce and launch. Let that sink in. A $5.2 million investment was used to completely vaporize a $58 billion American asset. This is the definition of a catastrophic war of attrition. The United States cannot afford to fight an enemy that can inflict a 10,000 to 1 financial casualty ratio. The strategic paralysis in Washington right now is palpable. They have realized that their multi-billion-dollar technological marvels are fundamentally vulnerable to cheap, mass-produced asymmetric tactics. The shield has not just been cracked, it has been completely bypassed. The destroyers currently operating in the Red Sea and the Persian Gulf are now facing a terrifying reality. Their floating resupply hub is gone. Once they fire their remaining interceptors, their magazines will be empty and they will have absolutely no way to reload at sea. They are essentially floating targets waiting for the next swarm. The immediate fallout of this catastrophic loss is actively reshaping the global map, yet you will not hear a single word about the strategic implications on the nightly news. Right now, a silent and desperate retreat is underway. Without the USNS Robert E. Peary to replenish their vertical launch cells, American Arleigh Burke-class destroyers are rapidly becoming sitting ducks. Open-source military tracking data shows that several U.S. warships are quietly altering their patrol routes, pulling back from the high-risk, contested zones of the Red Sea. They are moving towards safer, distant waters to avoid being caught in a swarm attack with empty magazines. The United States Navy, the ultimate symbol of global force projection and American hegemony, is being forced to yield ground. The logistical lifeline has been severed, and the fleet is effectively bleeding out. Meanwhile, the mainstream media and White House press secretaries are engaging in one of the most aggressive information cover-ups of the 21st century. If you turn on the television, all you will see are emotional, highly sanitized press conferences praising the heroic rescue of the Peary's crew. They are focusing entirely on the survival of the sailors to deliberately distract the public from the total collapse of the strategic mission. They know that if the American public fully grasps the magnitude of a $58 billion loss, the political and economic backlash would be apocalyptic. They are terrified of admitting that the supposedly invincible American armada has a fatal, glaring weakness in its supply chain. But while the American public is kept in the dark, the rest of the world is watching with wide-open eyes. In Beijing, military strategists are studying the sinking of the Peary frame by frame. China does not need to fire a single shot to benefit from this disaster. They are learning exactly how to starve a US carrier strike group of its ammunition. If a localized conflict in the Middle East can expose such a massive logistical vulnerability, imagine what would happen in a full-scale confrontation in the South China Sea or the Taiwan Strait. The Chinese Navy is realizing a terrifying truth. They do not need to sink heavily defended American aircraft carriers. They only need to sink the slow, vulnerable cargo ships that feed them. We are witnessing the end of an era. The unquestioned naval dominance that the United States has enjoyed since the end of the Second World War is officially over. The sinking of the USNS Robert E. Peary proves that the future of warfare belongs to those who can master asymmetric attrition, not just those with the biggest defense budgets. The global world order is shifting violently beneath our feet, and the Red Sea has become the graveyard of the old empire. What do you think happens next? Will the US military be forced to fully withdraw from the region, or are we standing on the precipice of a devastating global escalation? Drop your raw theories in the comments below. Do not forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to stay ahead of the media blackout. In a world built on deception, the truth is the only weapon we have left.